Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Battle Cry. One of India's and the world's most important military exercise just happened this week. 2020 has been an extremely hostile year for all humans, and China has made it even more so. And that's why the Malabar Exercise that brought together 4 democracies, India, the United States, Japan and Australia, for a high-tempo naval exercise that sends out a message not just to China, but to the entire world, was so important. On Battle Cry, the big focus on Malabar.
2020's biggest military war game. 4 democracies come together to project strength, power and might. The Big Bang Malabar Exercise.
To most people, Malabar was an absolute spectacle. Ships sailing in unison in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea. Well, we've got the best images of the huge warships that participated in Malabar and the aircraft. Take a look. We've put together the spectacle of Malabar 2020.
A year when the world's biggest threat has emerged from China. And a year when China has emerged as the world's biggest threat. 4 countries decided to come together, and they've sent out an unmistakable message. Welcome to 2020's biggest military show of strength, the Malabar 2020 exercise. India, the United States, Japan, and for the first time, Australia came together for this awesome foursome. The convergence of warships from across the Indian Ocean and the Pacific is no coincidence. This union of 4 like-minded democracies is called the Quad. And what they did in the Indian Ocean this week has the world sitting up and applauding. First, let's introduce you to the participants. Headlining the war game was the Indian Navy's flagship aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya. Bristling with MiG-29K fighter jets and helicopters, the Vikramaditya was sailing alongside another big carrier, the much larger and nuclear-powered USS Nimitz. Japan fielded its frontline destroyer, the JS Mursame. And Australia, the newest entrant into the grouping, brought its destroyer, HMAS Ballarat. But there were many more ships at play in this massive war game. Supporting the 2 aircraft carriers were their battle group elements, including Indian Navy destroyers INS Kolkata and INS Chennai, stealth frigate INS Talwar, and fleet tanker INS Deepak. Supporting the Nimitz was US Navy guided missile cruiser Princeton and destroyer Sterret. And finally, lurking beneath the surface, making its debut barely a year after entering a service, was the Indian Navy's Scorpene-class submarine INS Khanderi. The 11 ships sailing together may have made a pretty picture. But what was going on here was much more complex. These four navies spent these days at Malabar. Practicing war protocols, fine-tuning communication drills, and aligning themselves with such precision that if they ever need to operate together in a hostile situation, there will be no second guessing. The ships conducted all manner of joint drills, including air defense drills with fighters from the Vikramaditya and Nimitz. Cross-deck helicopter operations between the four nations' warships. And a huge number of secret protocol drills that cannot be discussed in public. And the choice of playground, the Arabian Sea, was no coincidence. The Malabar message must have been loud and clear.
Joining me on Battle Cry this week, we have Sandeep Unithan, Executive Editor, India Today magazine. Also with us is Captain D.K. Sharma, former spokesperson of the Indian Navy. He's been out there on Malabar exercises. He's seen them firsthand, and he has been the face of the Navy communicating the importance of these exercises. Welcome to you both. Captain Sharma, to you first. We all know the context in which this exercise has just happened, the Chinese element, all of that. What was special about this particular Malabar exercise, according to you?
Well, Shiv, we all know it. It is a known fact that this year in Malabar, there was a new addition, and that was the Royal Australian Navy, which people were, talking about for a long time. In fact, it was supposed to be announced much earlier, but better late than never. So this was the high point that the Quad nations did have. I would say the four nations did come together, and you have seen for the last 1 month. First, it was in the eastern seaboard, and now it is in the western seaboard. That how the four navies have absolutely, ironed out all the glitches and have been involved in this high intensity, a very, very complex war game, which was spread over 120 hours and which has just culminated today.
Sandeep, the complexities that Captain Sharma is telling us about, tell us a little bit about what those complexities are, because clearly this is an exercise that goes well beyond, just the spectacle of those mesmerizing images of all those ships sailing together. The true core of this exercise was what was happening perhaps in the electromagnetic spectrum, which you cannot see.
Well, Shiv, the two big challenges in this exercise essentially were communications and networks. And what I was given to understand is that so far it was an incomplete picture. It was an incomplete jigsaw puzzle. And today, all those pieces in that puzzle have fallen into place. Now, we are part of a common operational picture, as the US Navy calls it, a COP. And now we can plug and play into this grand thing of this architecture of where all the data from all these sensors, whether it be satellites or E2C Hawkeyes or fighter jets and warships, are all plugged into this common picture. This sensor to shooter link is complete, and we can access this larger picture. And that actually is one of the most interesting parts of this exercise. And,
Yes.
once you're plugged into the system, you can then carry out a whole range of exercises, be it shepherding airstrikes, attacking enemy submarines. Now, the emphasis on anti-submarine warfare is very clear. China has been deploying submarines in the Indian Ocean region for over a decade now.
Yes.
They've been using these submarine deployments to gather information about the Indian Ocean region, the salinity, the water levels, the complexities of operating so far out from their homeland. And this is one big area that the Indian Navy is really worried about. Anti-submarine warfare, the fact that we've not had the kind of force multipliers for many years, and which are now beginning to come in, Shiv, with the P2C, with the P8Is and the MH60 Romeos and a whole lot of surface assets. So this is one big area of concern for the Indian Navy, and indeed anti-submarine warfare was the key thrust area in the Malabar that just concluded today.
Absolutely. Captain Sharma, your views as well on the anti-submarine warfare element and its importance and the kind of message it actually sends out, given that you were in the Navy, you've seen many Malabar exercises at a time when China has been trying to make subsurface intrusions into the Indian Ocean. What's the message that goes out to China?
Yeah, two things, Shiv. First, I will come to the complexity, which I was not able to, explain it to you in the minimum time. Shiv, you see the density of white shipping, which is operating in our part of the world. That is the Indian Ocean region. Now, all the energy is flowing out of the Persian Gulf, and the trade is coming out of the Gulf of Aden. Now, in this kind of an environment, should you have, a white shipping prosecuted by mistake, that will cause havoc. So, knowing the whole picture, what Sandeep was telling, that various sensors are feeding you, there is a common operational plot, which we call in our terminology, the maritime domain awareness picture. Now, once you have that, each and every chap, each and every ship, you have the identification, and you are more bothered about the shipping, which is not identified. So there is the complexity starts coming from there, that do we know who is operating in our area? So this is one part. Other part is about the submarines. Shiv, we all know that since last 10, 12 years, China has been sending their boats. China has been sending their survey ships. China has been sending their various other kinds of crafts over here to map the IOR. So their intentions are very clear. They want to see the temperature profiles. They want to map the surface. They want to see all kinds of things which are necessary for anti-submarine warfare, or for that matter, to find out where the submarines will be deployed at a particular time and a particular month when the temperatures are of a particular type. So all this mapping they are doing, and we are very well aware of it. We have not stopped anybody from coming, and you can see how they are disturbed when any ship enters the South China Sea.
Absolutely.
So now coming to the anti-submarine warfare picture, we know that they have a good strength of boats, and we also know that they are making forays into our waters. So this kind of an exercise does put a pressure on that when they come to know that there are 4 navies with such potent platforms.
Exactly.
For example, the P8Is, the MH60 Romeos, the anti-submarine warfare ships, and of course the boats. So we are taking care of that, and I'm sure this is going to send a very, very clear message to China that you can't play around over here, and you have to follow the rules.
And I think
you have to.
And I think the implications and the reverberations of Malabar, invisibly and visibly, are going to be there long after the ships have already departed late in the week. The exercise continued for 120 hours, very high tempo joint operations, but the impact of it will be invisible, and it will be there long after this Malabar has sort of dissolved in the Indian Ocean. Captain Sharma and Sandeep, thank you very much, gentlemen, and for putting that into perspective and telling us why Malabar is so important. China's hostile actions have defined 2020, but India is well aware of Chinese hostilities long before the Ladakh standoff. China has been trying to intrude into the Indian Ocean with submarines for a very long time, and that's one of the reasons why anti-submarine warfare was a crucial flagship element of Malabar 2020. The four countries came together to cooperatively hunt submarines in a simulated fashion.
Prowling far from home and looking to make inroads into the Indian Ocean, China has regularly sent submarines into India's ocean domain. In the last few years, attempts to intrude have dwindled. Thanks to a much stronger Indian Navy. But China's submarine force levels remain formidable. And the threat of Chinese submarines, both in the Indian Ocean, South China Sea and elsewhere, remains real. And that's one of the reasons why anti-submarine warfare was a powerful focus area in the Malabar 2020 Wargame. The Indian Navy's INS Khanderi, the sole submarine in the drills, played both hunter as well as prey, simulating a lurking Chinese submarine, giving the ships and aircraft of four nations an opportunity to test their sensors and procedures in the fine art of anti-submarine warfare. The hunters in the air included Indian Navy Sea King helicopters, US Navy and Australian Navy Seahawk helicopters, U-60 helicopters from the Japanese destroyer. Up in the air, far from sight, an Indian Navy P-8I Poseidon long-range reconnaissance and submarine hunting jet provided priceless tracking data of what was going on beneath the surface. The four navies conducted precision joint operations in tracking and destroying a submarine in a real-world setting. Everything in the exercise was absolutely real, except for weapon release. The drills may appear simple, but they're crucial and send out a very specific message to two of the world's most hostile nations. China is in the process of constructing and supplying 8 S-20 submarines to Pakistan in an effort to encircle India. But as the Malabar 2020 exercise has proven, India is not sitting tight on these developments, but is actually moving quickly to bolster its anti-submarine strength. Malabar was an opportunity to test some of that.
Given the huge amount of ocean all around India, the Indian Navy has suffered with embarrassingly low submarine levels. Thankfully, things are changing drip by drip. In fact, in just this week gone by, the latest Scorpion-class submarine for the Indian Navy was launched and will soon be in service. That and much more in this report.
The ceremonial launch of Wargame, the Indian Navy's 5th Scorpion-class submarine. For a country that has struggled to keep its submarine force levels respectable, a brand new submarine hitting water is a moment to celebrate. The Wargame enters a phase of sea trials before it is commissioned into the Indian Navy next year. It joins 2 Scorpene submarines already in service, the Kalvari and Khanderi, and 2 more ready to be commissioned soon, the Karanj and Vela. A total of 6 of these submarines will be in service in the next few years. One of the submarines, INS Khanderi, which was commissioned just over a year ago, had its first big outing at Malabar 2020. As the only submarine in the war game, it was of particular interest, allowing its crew to get valuable operational experience with foreign warships and protocols. But while the entry of new submarines is excellent news for the Indian Navy, there's good news on the anti-submarine warfare side too. The Indian Navy is soon to receive the first of 24 MH-60 Romeo helicopters from the United States. The formidable anti-ship and anti-submarine warfare helicopters have been fixtures at Malabar, giving the Indian Navy a chance to operate with these helicopters before getting some of its own soon. And finally, in a happy coincidence during the Malabar Exercise, the Indian Navy took delivery of its 9th Boeing P-8I submarine hunter aircraft from the United States. The aircraft flew in the Pacific route to India, starting from Seattle, with stopovers in Hawaii, Guam, Brunei, and finally its new home at the INS Hansa Naval Air Station in Goa. The Indian Navy's P-8Is are formidable long-range surveillance jets with keen sensors to track and hunt submarines. The 8 jets already in service in Arakonam, Tamil Nadu, have been fielded in a wide variety of operations, not just over ocean, but even over land during the current India-China standoff in Ladakh. For the hardest fight beneath the waves, the Indian Navy is making steady progress.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Battle Cry. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. And as we always say, India's true strength will only really be realized when no weapon is fired and no humans sent into war. Thanks for watching.
Icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.